Awesome. Welcome along, everyone, to our live tonight or this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I am here with Dario, who you will see on the screen.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dario. Thank you for waiting patiently for a few minutes there. We just had a couple of access issues on my side, and you'll see I'm in a slightly dark room for better internet. So we're away. So welcome along to our seminar on hair psychology. So today, Dario has prepared a presentation that he's going to take us through very, very shortly. But for those of you who haven't met either of us before, my name is Lou, and my role at Timely is to manage all of our social media. So I do a range of things like presenting live conversations with industry people. Dario and I have been doing a 8-class consultation masterclass over the past 2 months. So if you haven't had a chance to check those out, they are all on our Facebook and Instagram. And it's been a real journey that we've been through, and we've got one last one left. But today, this is our 3rd seminar that Dario and I have been together for. And this one is all about hair psychology. So tonight, what Dario is taking us through is basically sharing some ideas on how to help your clients better understand themselves, so that together that they can get the most out of your work. And Dario, is there anything that you'd like to add on what people can expect over?
Yeah. Thank you, Lou. I think one of the biggest things that before we get to know our guests, we have to really be in check with ourselves. And I became a much better communicator when I started looking in that mirror and listening to, when I would do seminars, they'd be recorded, and I'd listen back and I'd listen from an audience perspective. And I thought, okay, well, I can remove all of that because that was just filling in time. And then looking at it from a visual perspective, well, is that what I look like? And then you get some really hard truths. And what this presentation is really all about is to help refine and get to know us and be at one with ourselves. And so our mantra for 2020 is all about be the change, not think about the change, not ruminate the change, but actually be the change through action. So I think one small but successful step at a time will transform over a period of time quite a substantial growth in one's career. So yeah, I'm really excited and very passionate about the presentation tonight, or if you're in the UK, morning. So
yeah. Oh, you're getting good at this, Dario. You know our audience very well. UK morning. Now, just before we dive straight into the presentation, we would love to hear from you. So if you've got questions as Dario takes us through this class, please drop them in the comments and I'll keep an eye on those. And yeah, that's us. Let's get started.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Lou.
Thank you.
Okay. So the first topic I'd like to talk about is pretty much loneliness. And I think a lot of the times the way people react or the way we react could be based on out of being lonely. And so, there's a vacuum inside of all of us, and we believe with things that feeling of loneliness will disappear, but it doesn't disappear for most. Even when we're not hungry, we eat, we buy things we really don't need. We waste a lot of time watching TV series all to avoid our own suffering. And that's why we consume so much, to really push it down and bury it, in my view. And, this is due to our home being neglected. And when I talk about home, I really talk about our internal. And for me, to clean up our home is through our mantra breath. And this is something that I'm really passionate about because I work with a lot of people that suffer from anxiety. I get quite anxious when I'm in a foreign place. And so to really calm and cool yourself down, I've really researched and understood the best way to do that is through your breath. And so what I've worked out to really clean your home up is through 4 seconds in, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then 4 seconds out. And if you're an extremely anxious person, what I'd recommend you do is 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, and then 6 seconds out. And what I do on top of that is I give myself a mantra quote. When I'm breathing in, I say to myself, the air that I'm breathing in is cleaning my mind. And when I breathe out and exhale, I'm saying to myself, the air that I'm breathing out all the tension from my body. And the minute you say that, I'm releasing all the tension from my body. the body relaxes. And I think it's so easy, providing that we're not ruminating about negativity, we're focusing on what our body actually needs in the moment, in the present moment. So loneliness for me is I'm always, when I get a guest coming into the salon that's a little bit brittle, she could have been, this, especially with the pandemic, this could be like her first outing in a long time and she's lost her confidence. It could be that she's not communicating so frequently with people. And I find a lot of people are quite lonely and we assume that they're arrogant. It's just they've lost their confidence. And so I've become a lot more empathetic with people prior to this year. And only this year it's become more apparent or more exposed, I suppose, from what we've all experienced. So the next one is nourishment. So when we say something that lifts us up, we're feeding love and compassion. When we speak in a way that causes tension and anger, we're nourishing suffering. This is a really big discipline and choice within the way we react to what the world serves us. So we all have a choice to how we want to live. And that's something I like to empower people, including myself and my family. We all have a choice on how we want to live. We need to observe and not absorb. This is really important in the hairdressing space and beauty space, by being present and think with compassion. So I always lead with compassion first versus judgment. So what you read, write, say helps you feel nourished. So it's really important, and as well as the people that we have around, that, if we want to feel safe, it's really about the choices that we make about the community that we're community building with. So love equals nourishment. So compassion. Loving yourself is the basis of compassion. And I hope everyone's understanding that before we can really connect with our guests, we have to be connected with ourselves. I think too many times when I hear people talk about how to do a great consultation or how to do something right, it's an outwardly thing. And I think we've really got to clean ourselves up internally to get into that clarity. And most importantly, to be at one with what we're saying, to believe in what you believe. So compassion arises when you understand your own suffering. It's a beautiful practice of awakening. When you're listening, you're producing more compassion inside yourself. So I love being a great listener, a deep listener. You're always protected with compassion. So if a guest, if I'm asking a lot of questions in the salon and a salon guest client is challenged by it, I lean into it and say, look, I really want to understand, what are the issues that you've got with your hair, or potentially the things that there are opportunities there for us to improve. Then, the guest will know instantly by your tone that you're really into them more than they're into them. And that's really what we want to show in hairdressing. We want to demonstrate that we're not an average hairdresser. We're not like everyone else they've been to. This is quite a special moment. It's a new beginning for them. So the predator client. A predator is a deeply unhappy person. And I like to talk about this in every seminar that I do, because I'm always mindful that who are my people and who are not my people. We're not designed to be for everyone's taste. So I'm very mindful about, when someone comes in, providing that they're not being rude, well, no problem at all. I'm going to work really hard to transform and turn this experience around for that guest, being that I'm going to reset them and give them a new beginning in terms of coming to you for the first time. So some people stockpile hurt by packing down the pain until the body can't take it anymore. And I find that, when people give you, if you're listening, man, do people tell you the truth. But I think half the time we're not listening, and you can really hear it in people's voices when, pockets of air are coming out in the way they're talking to you. And they're giving you glimpses that there's a lot of stuff they can't keep down anymore. And sometimes you're actually at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you may challenge your guest, and then there's the release valve just goes off, and whoever's in front of them is going to cop whatever is on the surface of that pain and suffering. So if you lead from hurt and smallness, you kind of really have forgotten about your self-worth. And this is all about reminding yourself about compassion, about love, and kindness. These are things for me at the moment, and this is something that I'll lead into our final episode on Wednesday night. For me at the moment in life, it's leading with kindness. I really don't care how much awards people have won. I really don't care how much money someone has, what car they drive. I really care about how kind people are. And it starts with ourselves. be the change. And I think that it's, Instagram was such a popular thing and everyone from my children were gravitating towards it. And I just think the world has changed to prioritize what's important. And that's how people make you feel. And most importantly, how you make them feel. But we have to lead by that because so many people lead from fear. And that's really where the predator comes in. It's a fear-based client. So I always call it like the Chihuahua and the pit bull. And for all those pit bull lovers out there, this is nothing negative against pit bulls. But I'd like to share with you this analogy. When you have a pit bull intention coming in, a client willing to attack, you've really got to hug that client with experience to see the inner Chihuahua inside the client. And that's that fear-based person that's really quite snappy because they don't trust. And when you build trust and rapport and all the things we've been walking through our episodes, then you start to really see the real person. And that's what I love about this industry, is that connection point. So whatever you fight strengthens and whatever you resist persists. So I don't like resisting much in my life because I don't like it to persist. So what stands in the way becomes a way. And guys, just for those that aren't aware of our background, this is my 31st year in hairdressing. So I have a lot of experience with predator clients, and I've had a lot of fun experience with predator clients because I do love challenging women, challenging people, because if you actually handle them with care, love, kindness, and most importantly, boundaries, you can actually turn them into an advocate for life, because you're probably the first person that challenged them with facts and with love and kindness versus feedback. So deep listening. This is a passion project of mine because, many years ago, I've worked for some very well-known establishments, some product brands as well, brand ambassadors. And I found that along the way that we just, as hairdressers, when I got into the magazine space, I really understood as hairdressers, one of our faults is we don't listen. And on a photo shoot, you really have to listen to your brief. Otherwise, it's a very lonely photo shoot for you because you're gonna have to redo that hair quite a few times. And it's, each shoot's your production values on each shoots, a lot of money's been spent, so you cannot afford to waste too much time on the shoots. So deep listening for me really is typified by this diagram that you see on the screen. So most of us are selective listeners. So it's all about us, and it's a little bit about them. But then I realized that we're in a commercial space. We're actually selling time. And because we're selling our time, it should really be about our client, not us, because we're not the ones that are paying for therapy. We're actually there to be of service. So, and excuse me for my brashness through this, but I do like to be quite really real about it, because I just think looking at this opportunity that we have with clients is to bring them closer to us. And so then we have active listening, where we bring the client into our circle. And then we have empathetic listening, where we put the client guest in the core of the circle. So I challenge anyone, and I read forums all the time, on my Facebook feed, and all I see consistently is quite negative comments about clients and experiences. But if you really put that client in the middle of that circle and you empathize with them and you solve meaningful problems for your guests and you stay inside your lane, your experience lane. I have a very finite lane that I work in terms of what I do. I don't go outside that lane. And I think sometimes we go outside that lane and we learn from it. And you have to have a few of those lessons a few times in your career to realize which is your lane. So for me, if you're in your lane and you've got that guest right in the middle of the circle and it's 80% about them, 20% about you, well, you're going to really change your life, because each guest coming in is paying for your mortgage, is putting food on the table, is helping you go out and buy things that you love, or going out for dinner a lot more frequently, and saving for that holiday post-COVID. So, for me, people say, oh, she was annoying, that client. Well, I wouldn't be speaking like that for someone that's supporting your lifestyle. And that's the way I view it. That's an old school view, but ultimately it's true. There's a lot of truth to it. So if we can bring the client guest in the middle of that circle, well, she's going to support your lifestyle for many, many years to come. And we need a lot more advocates to ensure that you have a really prosperous future in this industry. So deep listening, we have to seek to understand to be understood. If we understand our client's suffering, we can help them. So we've got to ask meaningful questions. So one of the questions that I like to share with my guests is, I want to understand you more. And I say that interjectively in the middle of a conversation. I interject and I just go, I want to understand you more. But I talk with loving speech from my heart. I don't talk out of my head or egoically. It's very important that we remove the ego. So when we listen with compassion, you know, our clients are more open and willing to share and open up to us. So deep listening is a wonderful practice that will change your life for the better. And I guarantee it. I hear some, you know, when we're young, we're all very selfish, including myself in my 20s. I was extremely egoic and selfish in my 20s. And then what happens is when you start deep listening, you actually start understanding that the world we live in is this beautiful movie. Every 45 minutes to an hour, we have a movie in front of us. Someone's giving access to their life and their story, and it's quite beautiful. And the better you get to know them, the closer you get to them, well, the hair's the easy part. There's no more anxiety, there's no more anxiousness. But I think if we're talking about ourselves a lot, then we're clueless about who we're dealing with. And that's where anxiety, I believe, lies, in that area. So mind care, really important. Mind care is like our skin, it protects us. We have to protect ourselves and bring joy to ourselves and others. Mind care is about bringing your attention to what's going on in you and around you. So notice I always put in you first. I always ask myself the question before I react, is this a me thing or is this a we thing? And mostly it's a me thing. So I learn to keep my mouth quiet and deal with it internally versus letting the world know that I didn't quite like what I just heard, because that's a me thing. Okay, so overthinking, this is a big one in my classes, you know, and these beautiful souls that I get to work with and collaborate with, very talented hairdressers. But I think that what gets in the way a lot, we're too much in our head. So I used to do this a lot before photo shoots. I used to really ruminate about what we're going to do, what are the options, versus just being present at the brief on the morning of the photo shoot to really understand what the photographer wanted. And half the time it was never what I thought he would want or she would want. So self-talking is running commentary of what you perceive. Please understand, it's what you perceive. It's actually not what's going on, because our brains only have a capacity to do so much, but ultimately we have so many blind spots that we don't see things from another dimension or perspective. So that's why I believe having an open mind is so powerful. So stop thinking and talking and just be in the present moment. This gives us space to just listen to others. If we can't communicate with ourselves, then how can we listen to others? So when you produce a thought, only you are responsible for it. And that's very hard for a lot of hairdressers, because we're very creative souls. We have an idea and we want the world to hear about it, but maybe it's an idea for another time. Maybe it's not our time right now. Maybe it's someone else's time. And I find when I go out to dinners, hairdressers, I realize, and beauty therapists are some of the most emotionally intelligent people on the planet, because we learn when to talk at the right time. And not everyone has that gift. I find people interject at the wrong time and totally derail a conversation. And you can really see the effect that it has on people's confidence. So for me, this is the most powerful tool we have, is to trust it and not overthink about it. So one of my passion projects is loving speech. So if you speak through your heart, love is in your voice. Choose your words carefully for each person you communicate with, and speak gently, and this will nourish the other person. And it's really important. It's got to nourish you and the other person. If you're getting goosebumps, they're getting goosebumps. My question to you is, do you communicate in low resolution or high resolution? So if you're a low resolution hairdresser, you know, when your guest walks in, you're going to go, hi, how have you been? What are we doing today? That's a really low resolution question. So you're going to get a really not so great answer back. You know, you're going to get an answer back that probably will make you bored as a hairdresser. If you want to be stimulated as a hairdresser, well, you've got to ask better questions, because your answers are only as good as your questions. So I ask things like, Mary, it's been 11 weeks. You're 3 weeks overdue. I'm not going to ask you how is your hair going, but by the way, this is what we did last time. And I show her a photo of what we've done, and I actually mention the name of the technique. So what I've done is I've gone so highly resolution that my guest thought she was here 6 weeks ago, and I've explained to her she's 3 weeks overdue. Now, my tip for every hairdresser is to point out that every experience has an expiry date to it, just like every product does that we consume. So we've got to be really clear that this color will last 6 to 8 weeks, 8 weeks maximum. So let's make sure we don't go into the overdue and we stay into the maintenance period of maintaining this look. Now that's where I think we've got to be as hairdressers. We've got to be industry leaders through action, by being the change, not assuming that every guest knows that this intense color needs more maintenance. Or the guests often get into a pattern where they come in and they always complain about their hair because they've been running on 20 years of getting their hair done every 16 weeks. And so they're in this cycle of complaining because they don't know any better. So we've got to be the change. We've got to be very honest, got to be compassionate, got to have loving speech, and we've got to really believe in what we believe. And I like to call my clients out as much as they like to call me out, and anyone likes to call each other out, is that if you are working with a high sense of integrity and value, well, I'm going to call my client out. Before I ask her how is her hair, I'm going to let her know she's expired, because clients are often thinking about the last 2 weeks of their color, not 8, 10, 12 weeks ago. I can't remember back 5 minutes, 10 minutes, nor can I an hour ago. So if you walk them back, as soon as they come in, how long they've been since they've been in, you'll just see the wonderful reaction you get, which means you are on point today, my friends. So therefore, they're going to be very relaxed with you because the captain of this ship is awake. And I find most people are in a coma, talking in a coma language, which is low resolution unconsciousness. So I'd rather be more consciously awake with my language to really ensure that my guests can trust myself. So we have to train yourself to be a better communicator with deep listening and loving speech so we can heal the world one client at a time. And this is really the art of a hairdressing salon. It's that sense of you're touching people, but you're also touching hearts because you're making people feel great. You know, I think one of the things we're talking about a lot into 2021, for me at the moment, it's about creating new identities for people, not so much just the transformation itself. It's giving people new beginnings. And that is priceless, limitless, because people actually get to see a new version of themselves and then have currency when they leave the salon by attracting a lot of compliments when they go out. So that is limitless and priceless, by the way. Okay, so that leads us to ego. Okay, so ego. So all my hairdresser friends out there, you know, in our 20s, we are the worst, not just because of hairdressing. It's just, I think it's a stage where we're getting to know who we are as people. And we're very outward, we're not inward. And the word I know comes up a lot. The I word comes up a lot. And so, you know, I think when people get really embarrassed with the word ego or offended. And ego is not a bad word, by the way. You know, it's all about our persona of how we want to be perceived. So it's a bit like your parents questioning you and you get really defensive because you want your parents to think you're the golden child, or you want your partner to think you're absolutely squeaky polished, and they might catch you on a Sunday morning accidentally, like early in the morning, and rock up and they see the true you, and your persona's damaged, or someone might say something and you perceive it as offensive because it was in front of people. And we're so caught up in our persona that we waste valuable time being kind, firstly to ourselves, because we're only human. So we can live in the objective world, and to be objective is unbiased. If you're objective about something, you have no personal feelings about it. I'm incredibly objective when I talk about my job because I stay on the factual side of what I believe in. So if the guest was here 11 weeks ago, it was 11 weeks. You know, there's no point. There's no point in wasting more time about who's right or wrong. It was that day. Subjective world, if a guest complains about her hair and you don't like what she's saying, well, that's our ego. And our ego will make 1,000 excuses why you're right, and versus listening to the guest and making it right. See, when a client walks into our salon and space, it's not so much, you know, a client will always ask for what she wants, but we've got to be really careful and ensure that we give her what she needs. And I think we get caught up in our persona so much that we want our clients to love us versus listen and really understand what we're trying to say. But we really have to get through this part really well. And taking on feedback, constructive feedback, is really important to be objective about it versus subjective and having a bit of a non-verbal fight. Okay, so ego is your exterior presenting to you the world, or your outer mask. So meaning the real me is hidden behind our outer mask. Ego doesn't mean you've got a fat head. It's our internal eye and center of our attention of our personality that organizes what we perceive. Please understand that it organizes what we perceive. And we can only perceive so much because we only have a capacity to take on only so much information, whether it be through sight, through hear, through all our senses. And I find that, you know, we often think if I think it, it must be true. And then we get surprised when the facts come out. So I never talk outside my lane in the salon. I like to really keep it about hair, about the guests. And when I go out, I do have some fun. Like I do have a play around with my ego. When I go out socially and I'm with a lot of people with huge egos, like say for instance, I'm in a dinner party with a lot of bankers, which is a rhyme for something else. And so the bankers might be saying, well, what do you do for a living? You know, and excuse my accent because I've been watching The Crown, so I've got a bit of an English accent. And so the you know, I might say, oh, I'm in the transformation business, and they go, well, what? And I go, yeah, I change lives. And they go, what? And you know, I might turn around and say, you know, I work with people, and then I might go down to I'm a hairstylist. I'll never say I'm a hairdresser. And I love saying I'm a hairstylist because for me, you know, I cut, I color, I cut, I style, I don't color. So for me, that resonates really for who I am. And I really own that. And I love that. But I don't want to be, when I'm talking to them, it's what matters for me. It's not about me impressing them with, I'm a hairdresser. And in terms of getting pigeonholed, in terms of egoically, that, because I do also play the peasant when I go out, when I sometimes go out and go, I'm a hairdresser, and they go, oh, and I go, yeah, your shout. and so it can really work. It can really work for you if you work it up. I think it works more for girls, but I do live near Oxford Street in Sydney, so it does work sometimes for guys. And so your body perceives, it's really important, your body perceives what the mind is thinking. For example, hurt feeling is an ego. So in summary, the ego is a fictitious fantasy and a sense of self, or ultimately a loss of self. And I think we live so much in the ego if we really crave attention, or if we really crave the spotlight. And we had our hairdressing awards a few weeks ago, and I went to the bathroom and I saw some hairdressers in there, and you know, one hairdresser was drinking out of a flask from inside of his jacket. And this person is a very confident person socially. And I said, wow, I can't believe you're drinking out of a flask at an awards ceremony. And he said, it's tequila. And I said, but the drinks are for free at this venue. And I was just having a bit of a laugh, but then I walked away and I was really sad. I was really sad that he had confidence in a pocket, you know, and sometimes I'm really surprised by where people try and get their confidence. And that's where I see a loss of self, a real loss of self. So we have to really find our inner voice, and we can get lost in our ego is what I'm trying to say. In my 20s, I had this in photo shoots. I was so lost in the images that I was doing and what I was doing as a career that I wasn't really into listening. I was more into creating. So sorry, Lou, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to sort of, just for those listening that might not have experience or like with the term ego, if you would say, you know, what the purpose of trying to quieten the ego is, would you say that's to live, to give a service that's more authentic and to live more authentically? What would you say your motivation there? I mean, it definitely makes sense. Like all of these things are things that no one really likes, you know, the ego. But yeah, for people that are sort of just starting to understand this term of ego, what would you say that real goal of when you do step out of that ego, that desire for other people's approval and so on?
Yeah.
What's that sort of goal there?
Well, this really coexists with overthinking in my mind. Mm-hmm. So I find when people are so in their head, and we, you know, I can be like that. You know, I can be in my head a bit, and I do things. You know, what gets me out of my ego is being really present and putting myself in the other person's shoes and being compassionate and being, you know, really into deep listening and understanding. Because I've been really blindsided in my life about, you know, I had this, you know, I've had many experiences where I've just been gobsmacked. I'm so glad that I wasn't in judgment. And I think we sit in judgment so quickly, and I find that comes from ego, and it's just a lazy way. It's a lazy way to label what we're perceiving, and versus actually if the person's suffering from a mental illness or has a loved one that's going through illness. But we're all so quickly to judge. And that's why I really believe 2020 to 2021, it's all about spreading the love of kindness. And if you're around someone with ego, we don't have to participate. We just walk away. You know, I duck and weave so many conversations that are not my conversations that I want to have, because that's not the stage of life. You know, I don't want to be in that boxing ring of pride, because ultimately nobody wins. Nobody wins. You actually waste time. And I think the biggest commodity we have in life is time, because we're all, it's, you know, we only have limited time. And so I think if we're stuck in our heads so much, we're wasting time. So for young ones in here, to just sort of answer your question, is that if we live in ego, we're wasting time on what people think. And I think sometimes, you know, social media has a lot to do with ego. You know, people using filters that are so unrealistic. And when you meet people, they look nothing like their image. And that's an egoic waste of time, because people then think that you've aged in 5 minutes, you know, 5 hours since you posted that photo. Or they think that, you know, potentially, and I've seen people retouch themselves, and I feel, I see it differently because I've got kids, and I see it differently where I just feel, I feel sad when I see people do that, because I think that they're not happy in the real world. And I think once you learn and find out what your inner beauty is, and surrender to that. I mean, beauty is so many different things to so many different people. And I could work with a model that has the most stunning genetics, or I can work with an actress or a client that has just got the most beautiful soul and personality. And there's beauty in both, but I would always gravitate to the soul versus the exterior. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the ego of exterior, as well as what we're hearing. So thank you for asking the question. So then we have our shadow.
Nice. I was just going to say, will help tie in so much with obviously making it easy and accessible to access the loving speech as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Because look, guys, every time, you know, I could walk out of my home right now and go down the street, and someone could just, you know, I live in a Woolloomooloo in Sydney, and, you know, we've got a lot of people. It's a very diverse area. We have Housing Commission down the road, which is amazing. We have homeless people around the corner, underneath the Woolloomooloo viaducts. We have King's Cross. So it's you know, we have Elizabeth Bay, which is like one of the biggest high density postcodes in the country. So there's quite a big melting pot. And, you know, you walk around and you see so much sadness, but also you see so much kindness. You know, I see people giving. I see Rose every time I see this Indigenous Rose that's been living on the streets for 25 years. I give her $10 or $20. I don't care where it goes, but she means a lot to me because she's been part of my life for 25 years. Go into the city and give my daughters money to give to people because I'm blessed to earn it. And I don't sit in judgment. I sit in absolute, you know, I'm really blessed to have the upbringing that I had, and I try and help as many people out as possible versus sitting in judgment. So the shadow, this leads me to shadow. The shadow is part of our unconscious mind. So we lose clarity of a situation and we produce judgment. So it's almost like we're really judgmental very quickly. Well, this has got a lot to do with our shadow. So it sits outside of you a little bit further away. So it's stuff that you're probably not more aware of, not so much consciously. I suppose if you ask your friends, how do I act when this happens? You might be surprised because that's part of your shadow. It's things that you're not aware of. And so the shadow ultimately becomes our filter to our reality. If I think it, it must be true. So we have blind spots caused by our shadow. That's why sometimes we're in meetings and someone says something or a client says something and you're like, whoa, I didn't see it from that perspective. But it really wakes you up. So the more you can shine a light on awareness, the more your ego shadow will shrink. And so what I love about this is awareness is the key. Awareness is the key. So the picture on the screen right now, the shadow ultimately becomes our filter to our reality. So on the left is what I think I look like in my mind. And on the right is what you might be seeing in the mirror. And you've got to really carefully navigate the two, because I've had clients come in that are in their 60s and bringing in photos of when they were in their 20s. And that's a very dangerous intersection to have, because you're going to hurt their ego. And it's a really interesting thing. And so you've got to choose your words very carefully. So what I do a lot to avoid this is I take photos of my guests via my iPad, front on, side on, back on. And I talk via the iPad. And if you want to see this demonstrated, just go back. I think, Lou, if you can put on the link here of the video that we did, and it'll show me doing the consultation with our model, Lucy.
Absolutely.
And if you can put the link on there, you'll see how I do this, is that'll bring in exactly, you've got to show the guest via a photo of what you're seeing today, not what you're looking at in a mirror 1.5 meters to 2 meters away. So it's really critical because she needs to see what you see and you need to see what she's seeing. And that's what I love about this process. So projection, reality is the screen and the projector of everything we do. Projecting yourself with such a strong opinion onto others means that we have a dense shadow from pain and trauma. So please really reflect, everyone. We've all got someone in our lives that we've experienced that will force their opinion onto us. So I used to go to hair shows a lot, and there would always be 1 or 2 people that would come and force what I should do in my career onto me. And it could be people on the fringe of my career, people that I didn't know that well. And, or could be a family member. And when I hear people talk with that in their voice, well, that's just, all that pushing down, just bubbling and percolating on the surface. So when I hear that, I empathize with them and really feel for them as a fellow human, because I just feel that they're really on the ropes with what they're dealing with and ruminating in their mind. So we project ourselves onto others, and as the projection wears off, that person becomes clear. So we've got to be really careful not to project. So I'll give an example. You may get an email from a customer, a client, guest, and that email might be challenging a service that they just had, or questioning a price. And then you read that email and your wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband walks in the room. It's really hard not to project onto the next person. And so we've got to be really mindful of letting things go and keeping it where it was, not carrying it forward and projecting it onto others, because it's a discipline. And I've got kids that I'm constantly trying not to project onto. I'm not perfect at it. Half the time it comes out halfway and I'm like, oh, I'll put it back in. And we have this cute term in my family. It's called strawberries. And if dad's ever projecting or saying something, my kids go, strawberries, which means it's a me thing. And I've empowered my kids to use strawberries as much as possible. And I go straight away, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, because they popped my bubble. And I got a 15-year-old that, has got a great sense of humor. She just did a practical joke on me, real dad. She just did the funniest thing to me. She stood behind me. You'll love this. She's just stood behind me before I went on air. And she goes, Dad, I've got a great joke for you. And I was like, okay. And she said, Dad, put your hand here and hold the string. And I want you to pull it really hard. And I pulled it and she slapped me on the other side of the face. And I was like, and then she tried to do it to my 11-year-old. And my 11-year-old goes, I know where this is going to end. Not good for me. But I totally took that for the team. Totally put that for the team. She hit with an extra bit of energy in that. So really the now is the exit door out of the ego, because you're present. And you can really, when you're present, you've got both hands on the wheel of life, and you've really got control on what you say and how you react. And I think everything that we do, and even and my passion project is young people and inspiring young people with tools and a toolbox of things that I didn't have when I was younger. I had to work this out as a mature adult. And, for me, being at one with what you're doing now helps the energy flow in a very positive way. And it's okay, being wrong's not fatal. Being suggestive is fantastic, because what's the worst thing a guest can say to you? No? Well, maybe next time. Really believe in what you're saying to your guests. And being present is the beginning of freedom, because ultimately we're not saving lives. We're making people, I call our salons, we're selling happiness, and we're a weight loss center, because everyone always walks out looking skinnier and happier because the hair, we're slimming down hair and we're giving hair volume, and we're making that palette look an extension of makeup, onto the hair. And it's really powerful, and it's non-surgical. It's cheaper than surgery, and it's so instant. There's just so much power in being that gift of transformation and new identity. So my tip for staying present is I wiggle my toes a lot. And so wiggling my toes keeps me thin. Really, I can feel my toes wiggling, and it, brings me back to my body versus in my mind. Now, I want to teach you something that I've not taught before in our sessions. Say, for instance, you've got a predator client around and projecting onto you. And I've mentioned this in one of our episodes, but what I do is I wiggle my tongue on the inside of my teeth and I keep my mouth closed. And what that does, it distracts my mind from absorbing, and I only observe what I'm hearing and seeing, but I don't absorb it because my mind's half distracted by my tongue. Another one that I want to give you, if you're around an incredibly toxic person, close your mouth and with your tongue count how many teeth you've got. That is the best. That is the best.
You one as well.
Oh, that's best. It's the best. You will sit there and look like you're listening, but you'll be so occupied because you'll miss your count and have to go back to the beginning so many times. And so the idea is it's how you manage yourself, because you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped. Yeah. And this is a life skill, guys. It's not just the salon, because if you're good in life, you're great in the salon, because, you know, we are who we're around and what we're doing. So the now is everything. So really this leaves us to the last chapter of this session, which is emotions. So what drives your feelings is your raw emotions. So if you're feeling anxious, you have to change your feeling. Now, if it feels like you've taken a stupid pill when you're under pressure, well, it's all about your smooth rhythmic breathing, which is what I touched on before. Same breath in, hold, same count, and same breath out. If you're anxious, breathe out for 6 seconds. But then you have to then think about the mantra, because the mantra is really what you're telling yourself. And if you're telling yourself the air is cleaning my mind, and when you're breathing in, and when you breathe out, if you're saying I'm releasing all the tension from my body, well, you're giving your body to actually relax. You're giving your body permission to relax. And I think what I try to do a lot is communicate to my body and mind in a very positive way. So until you can control your physiology, anyone can make you look like an idiot. And ultimately, emotions are so powerful, anyone can heat up your system. So I tell this story. I got in an Uber, in Brisbane about 2 years ago. And I was on my way to do a seminar. I actually think it was with Timely as well, with Georgie. And I was on my way to this seminar, and the Uber driver was so toxic. He had such a huge ego. And I sat in the front like we used to do. And I sat in the car and he was just talking and talking and talking. And I like to really relax before I do a seminar. And we were going past the Brisbane, the new casino that's getting built. Mm-hmm. And I says, oh, is that James Packer's new casino? And I knew it wasn't, but I just kind of wanted to interject and break up the conversation. And he went, oh, no. He goes, oh, he's doing really badly. What a bad businessman. And I said, and this is where I started to heat up his system. I thought, I'm going to have some fun. I said to him, do you know James? And he went, no. I says, oh. And I was quiet. And he goes, but he's not as good as his dad. And I said, did you know his dad? And he went, no. And I swear he could not get me to my destination quick enough, right? So ultimately he did it to himself. He got himself flustered and worked up. And really, I could see he was angry. And all I said was 2 statements. And he did it to himself. And I realized the power of sometimes we just take on things because we might be in a negative emotion.
Yeah.
And when we hear things, we get anxious about what we're hearing, we get angry and we get frustrated. So it's never about the client. It's about us. If we're in positive emotions, well, we're passionate, we're determined, we're focused. So really this is about where we're going into the day. How's our mindset for the day? And I have routines that get me into a really good headspace. So when you can intelligently direct your emotions, then you're on your way. And this is us about, it's not academically like going, okay, I've got 100 out of 100 in my high school. It's really about intelligently how we're focusing and using our time and maximizing. What books are we reading? What podcasts are we listening to? What aspirational leaders are you aspiring to lift up to? And if we're not aiming for something, well, we're not going to get anywhere. And I have some people in my clientele are my mentors. That's how I've learned. I have some amazing, not some, all. I learned so much from my guests. Because if you make people feel good, well, hey, they're going to come back for more and they're going to teach you along the way. So most people's emotions are based on what's going on outside of them. So how you feel is not about other people, it's about you. So we have to go from victim to ownership. And it's really important. So breathe rhythmically through your heart every day is the first step to you getting closer to you. Now, finally, one of my passion projects as well is talking about the chemicals that really help us in our mind, particularly in our limbic system. So really to understand as hairdressers where that sits for us, because most of us are highly visual creatures, creative creatures. So deep in our brains, these are the chemicals that drive us. So if you're a very creative person, on the right of your screen, then this is what really lifts you. So your motivation, loyalty, emotions, trust drives behavior. So these are things that I talk about if I'm talking to an emotional mind or a visual creative person. If I'm talking to a logical, analytical person, data, rules, logic, facts. So I wouldn't be talking to my guest about anything that's emotional or visual to a data person, because simply that they will not feel like you get them, and you won't feel like they're getting you. So I have to align and coexist with each guest depending on their modality. And if you want to learn about modality, you can go back to one of our sessions that we've done, because I talk exactly and break it right up, really simple for you to understand. So then we go into our next section. We'll go back. So we'll go into our next section, which is the chemicals, the 4 chemicals that go inside our brain. So dopamine. Dopamine is probably my most favorite, hence why there's a hamburger there. So if you get the hit, you get the reward. So dopamine is the neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger in the brain. So it's that feel-good chemical with pleasure and reward system. So dopamine plays a vital role on how we feel. In addition to our moods, dopamine also affects memory, movement, and focus, which is really important for us as hairdressers. You also get dopamine when you eat. That's why we enjoy eating. With all the rewards comes more dopamine, your motivation. So some tips for hairdressers is I'd like hairdressers to, if you can leave this presentation to think about it, is have an intention plan for your day, a goal. Today, I'd like to have 5 people take me home in a bottle, yeah, in terms of retail. I'd like to give people the most amazing experience. Today, I want to do 3 makeovers. I want to give people in 3 new identities. I'm not going to say yes to every client today. I'm going to challenge my clients in a very positive way. So every time you do something that you set out a goal, you get your dopamine, which is what you need for oxygen every 45 minutes to an hour to keep you going without feeling tired mentally. So some tips to boost your dopamine is exercise regularly, enjoy music, set goals, and enjoy the challenge. We go to serotonin, which is a leadership chemical. Serotonin is a chemical that provides a wide variety of functions in the human body. It's sometimes called the happy chemical because it contributes to well-being and happiness. It's linked to overall better moods and overall satisfaction. So it's very important in our system. Serotonin actually offers quite an additional benefit to your health. Besides helping regulate your mood, serotonin also is needed for motor skills, cognitive function. So it's pretty important for us as hairdressers, motor skills and cognitive function. That's really about our mobility in hairdressing, making sure we're at one with what we're trying to do within our skill set. So to boost your serotonin, bright lights in the salon, very important. Bright lights like sunlight, going out into sunlight responsibly, supplements, and remembering happy events. So my photo album in my iPhotos is chronologically put together at all happy events. So if I'm feeling like I'm feeling a bit lost or a bit lonely, because I used to travel a lot, is that I would always look at happy events to bring me back to my happy place, which is feeling loved and feeling I can't wait back to see my friends. I can't wait to come back and give my little girls a beautiful hug. They're not little anymore, but I do look at their little photos. And I send them photos when I'm looking at it as well, just to let them know that I'm thinking of them. So it's not bad manners, it's low oxytocin. So if a guest walks in a bad mood, well, quickly go to your stereo and put in peaceful piano on Spotify or classical music for 5 to 10 minutes. This will bring them down to an altitude, your altitude of the way you would love them to respond and react to you in the salon. Because if she's brittle and prickly, well, she's probably anxious or you don't know what's just happened to her. So you've got to change the mood. So oxytocin is a hormone that acts, again, as a neurotransmitter in the brain. It's associated with good feeling and emotion. Color. Oh my God, I've just got my dog that's just come in. How good is this? I've got a standard poodle here that's just walked in.
Oh, can we see?
No, she's camera shy. She's walking away from me now. It's like she just understood.
Oh,
She hasn't got an Instagram account. So she's like, hey. That's funny. She's had too much love today, so she's being spoiled. So say, for instance, the color's not working out in the salon. Everyone's, you're panicking, you're going to your boss, you're going to your manager, you're going to your leaders in the salon. You may all come together to fix that color. It didn't feel good. You've got to put your persona aside in terms of shadow because you're feeling possibly judged. However, you will joke for years as a team because it's a bonding togetherness that comes with saving it and making it right. Because when a problem happens, it's making it right and making it live right. That is what we're all about in the salon. So having a team that can actually come together and save and help you is really important. So oxytocin gives us empathy. If you lack oxytocin, you become more empathetic and selfish. And now my wife's trying to get the dog out. It's a bit like that CNN guy or that Fox guy, when the lady hooks the little child out of the room when they're doing a live. That was funny. So the idea is that oxytocin, the more oxytocin you have in your system, the more generous we become ultimately. And that's why when I see people not being generous, they don't have this in their system. Oxytocin, some tips to boost oxytocin is give money away, being trusted, laughter. I watch a lot of comedies. Take a walk, call someone you love. I call my mum every day just to connect with my mum and make sure that, she feels loved as much as I do. It's a mutual thing. And listen to smooth music. It's really important to keep yourself feeling really cool and calm. So then we go to the stress hormone, which is cortisol. Cortisol ultimately is released at times of stress and has many important functions in your body. But look, like today, we were driving and this lady ran out in front of us and she, we hear the term fight, flight, and freeze. And she froze. She had cortisol in the middle of the road. She froze in the middle of the car. She stopped running when she saw the car. And I just went, probably not a good idea to work out what color my car is right now. I would just keep going. And then it was probably about a second, she stopped and realized she was in danger. So I realized what cortisol did for her is cortisol got her to stop and recognize danger.
Yeah.
And when she realized she was in severe danger, she kept on running. And so sometimes what I find in life is people ruminate that in our minds. So that it's that feeling of stress and anxiety initiates fight and flight mode and freeze. So it's that feeling of tension. You're not sure what's going to happen. And that's why we have anxiety and stress. If we're living in our minds too much or our ego, well, we're going to be in that constant loop of anxiety. And we've got to use some really great distress tolerance techniques to overcome and get out of that rumination. Really, really important. And so cortisol is an oxytocin inhibitor that it doesn't want us to be empathetic when we see danger. It wants to stay alive. It makes us unbelievably selfish and paranoid, stressed and tense. So its primary function was to keep us alive. But I see people sitting in it for too long. It's meant to come in like a lightning bolt. So some tips to reduce your cortisol is to exercise, meditation. I meditate 20 minutes a day just to quiet my mind. I dance, play with animals. We pretty much do both with our dog every day. We watch comedies, we laugh, limit alcohol and caffeine when you're in times of distress. Really important. So we'll go to the next slide. And, for me, these are really passions. So if you can control your emotions, you can change your life. And that's what this is all about. These talks, and thanks to Timely, the opportunity in this platform is really about ensuring that, we've got this platform that everyone can connect and understand from experience that we do have an opportunity to change our life and be the change. And that's really what inspires me. And, I love this quote. It's empathy when you can put yourself in the place of me. And this is what I love about practicing kindness, because ultimately, if you put yourself in the place of your guest, then you'll really connect. So finishing off, self-love. Your intention drives your attention. So if your intention plan for the day is to truly inspire your guests, you will inspire everyone. You'll touch a lot of hearts. If you bring your empathy, really listen and really get people, solve a meaningful problem, coexist with your guest, your team, and ask yourself, how can I bring better empathy? And if you do that, well, wow, if you be the change, you'll have change. But it all starts with us. We have fixed mindset. This is the conversation that we have within ourselves internally. If we're fixed, I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. Tell me I'm great. If you succeed, I feel threatened. I make excuses for my results. And this is really fixed. And we can be fixed or growth at different stages of our lives because we go through lots of dips and curves. But if you're a growth mindset person, I can learn anything I want to. This is the internal conversation. And when I'm frustrated, I keep going. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, I learn. Tell me and I'll try harder. If you succeed, I'm inspired. And my effort and attitude is everything. So it's not about winning. It's ultimately about my effort and attitude, leaving it all on the field. So ultimately finishing off is that we have alpha and beta personalities. And I just want to really clarify for young people, because I see a lot of young people get quite insecure. And what I want to help clarify with them is that when you're next to someone and you're very nervous, well, that person's clearly dominating you, or you feel dominated. So they're the alpha and you're the beta. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. If they're a client of yours, what I want you to do is ask really great questions to make the alpha feel safe. And if you're asking really great questions, well, you're going to get some really great answers back. But if you're asking low resolution questions, that alpha won't feel safe and they will dominate you even more. And you're going to feel what I call an Oompa Loompa situation in the salon. And nobody wants to feel like an Oompa Loompa, even though they look amazing. But if you're the alpha and you're around someone and you sense they're nervous, well, we have to practice kindness and we have to make people feel great. We have to make them feel safe. But ultimately, we're all doing this, and that's why we get insecure. It's primal, it's animal, and that's the world we live in. And guys, this leads me to the end, and we've got one final, and I'm so excited about this because we're telling you about what's coming up next, which is really cool. So on Wednesday evening, on the 25th of November, and I'll let Lou do all the times for the different locations because I'll get a bit lost. But I just want to thank you, Lou. I know everyone, it was Lou's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to Lou.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Lou, you've been an amazing partner in crime over these past 7 weeks. We've got one more week to go, and I'm very grateful for Timely and yourself, and also Jessica that I know that's watching, and Joe, and the entire team at Timely. It's been the feedback we've received, and most importantly, hopefully everyone feels the intention to improve and elevate the industry. And that's why I love working with Timely so much. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Dario. That was brilliant. And thank you everyone for joining another awesome seminar. It's honestly, it's been a journey, and I can't believe we are up to our final consultation masterclass on Wednesday. So time-wise for everyone, it's our usual time slot that we know and love. So it'll be 7 p.m. Australia Eastern Time. So that's Melbourne, Sydney, and so on. 9 p.m. New Zealand, and then 8 a.m. over in the UK. So Dario, in that, in class 8, you'll be sharing a little bit about what's coming next for you. That's right, yeah? Amazing.
Well, I won't say too much, but it's just going to keep it. We're just going to keep it in the bubble. What's next? And it's really exciting because 2021 is a year for change, and we've got an opportunity to do that and pivot. And I'm really excited to share with you what we've got coming up. So I think for both of us, which is really cool.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining along and for your lovely comments throughout. It's always really nice to have these sessions interactive. So thank you. And we hope to see you on Wednesday. So tune in again, but have a lovely evening for our friends Australia and New Zealand, and have a great Sunday for our friends in the UK. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll catch you soon.